Sense perception is useful in the fact that it allows us to perceive the world around us in many different ways. We rely heavily on sense perception in every aspect of life, from mundane tasks to the most difficult of problems. Our sense of touch is used at almost every waking moment in order to relay information about our surroundings and regulate body functions such as temperature. Our sense of sight is useful when taking in data from our surroundings, such as seeing science experiments or just trying to scout out the area around us. These are just two examples of how useful sense perception is, as essentially the foundation with which all other ways of knowing are built upon. Although it has its flaws, as with all other ways of knowing, sense perception is generally one of the most reliable ways in which we can determine exactly how things are happening in our world. As we've been taught, we can never have 100% certainty on anything, but with sense perception, we can get as close as we feel comfortable with.
Sense perception is somewhat limited. For example, it can be easily manipulated. For example, putting your hand in lukewarm water after putting your hand in hot water, you'll be feeling the water being cold instead of warm, when in fact it is warm. Another example of being manipulated is in the movie Now You See Me, when they manipulated the Frenchman, believing that he was being teleported to Paris from Vegas via long-term hypnosis. Sense perception can also be misled, for example, optical illusions, and it can also be lost. For example, Helen Keller lost her vision and her hearing when she was only a baby. And our vision can be easily damaged by chemicals, UV rays, and other things. Lastly, it is actually somewhat limited, like I said before. Dogs can actually hear more accurately than humans, and eagles can see more accurately than humans. Thanks.
Sense perception can work with other related ways of knowing. For example, it can work alongside memory. We all have tastes and smells from our childhood that we experience again later on, and they can trigger a memory in our brains. Furthermore, these memories can also trigger emotions, which is another way of knowing. Sense perception is also used with language because without being able to hear, it's very difficult to communicate. Reason can also work with sense perception through ability to take in your surroundings and form conclusions from them. Intuition works in the same way. For example, if you touch a hot stove, you're not going to touch it again because it hurt the first time.
Imagination.
Imagination can contrast sense perception because internally processed and doesn't rely on the five senses. Imagination is also abstract and not defined by physical objects that can be interpreted by the five senses, but rather ideas within one's own mind. It is also less reliable because imagination can be seen as escaping the constraints of reality, while sense perception focuses more on reality and the interpretation of physical objects and events. Faith can also contrast sense perception because it is a belief and cannot be proven and has less evidence to support it than sense perception. Many things that are believed through faith do not have physical evidence to support the belief, which contrasts sense perception because the senses can't be used to interpret the belief in most cases.